The Xenoblade Chronicles series is one of my favorite video game series of all time. The way I got into it was pure luck, as the games from the outside never really appealed to me, but you guys on Twitter voted for me to play it in 2018. Then, after playing Xenoblade 2 in 2019, I had an incredible time, and it seemed like Nintendo specifically heard me that year and also announced that Xenoblade 1 would be coming to the Nintendo Switch. Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition is my favorite video game of all time, and is basically everything that I could ask for inside of a video game. So when rumors surfaced last year of a potential Xenoblade Chronicles 3 which is near completion and could be releasing soon, I was of course skeptical as to whether or not to believe it, but excited deep down at the possibilities that it could bring. And here we are in 2022, now having played the final game in this incredible trilogy. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 was a beautiful game all the way from the title screen to the credits, and I'm very happy to have been able to preserve my first time experience with it forever on this YouTube channel, as I was actually streaming the entire game live over on my Twitch, and I've been playing it for the past couple of months ever since it came out. But now that I'm pretty much done everything with it in terms of the main game and everything that it has to offer, I've preserved all of those VODs and they're over here on this channel as well, so they're always going to be here anytime I ever kind of want to see how I felt about the game and how I was playing through it, but also for anybody else who's kind of curious as to how I felt kind of playing through this game. So if you are interested in it, I will have that playlist linked below in the description. But now, even though it's been a while, I finally want to talk about my thoughts about Xenoblade Chronicles 3 and kind of just how I feel about the game and what I really enjoyed about the game, what I feel like could have been done a little bit better, and just kind of my overall thoughts about everything, because I really wanted to talk about this game for a while now, and I think I finally have been able to kind of just gather all my thoughts together, so I really want to talk about it. Now this is going to be a two-part video, where part 1 that you're watching right now is just going to focus on everything except for the main story, and I'm kind of just going to give you my general thoughts about the game, and so it is going to be spoiler free, so anybody who even hasn't played the game is still going to be able to watch it and just kind of hear my thoughts about how I feel about everything. But then part 2, which is going to come out later, is going to go really deep into the main story and have full-blown spoilers, and we can talk about everything that happens in the game and what I really enjoyed about it and what I didn't like so much either. Now, even though this video isn't going to focus on the main story, I do want to talk real quick just kind of about the premise for the game and the presentation that they show for this game in terms of trailers, because I feel like that does kind of set the scene really well for what this game is going to be like, and I feel like they do a really good job of it. So Xenoblade Chronicles 3 takes place in Ionios, a war-torn world inhabited by people of two opposing nations, Keves and Agnes. All soldiers in this world only have a lifespan of a mere 10 years and must fulfill those 10 years of service on the battlefield. The player is put into the shoes of Noah, a Keves soldier with his friends Uni and Lance. Fighting in order to live and living to fight, these characters have spent years battling against Agnes until one special mission puts them into confrontation with 3 other Agnes characters much like themselves. Through their conflict, they awaken a mysterious power allowing them to transform into a unique creature known as an Ouroboros. Questioning why their lives are like this, the group sets out to discover the truth behind their world and who's really the true enemy pulling the strings. Now that alone is already like the darkest and most grim setting out of any of the Xenoblade games. It's kind of similar to Xenoblade 1, where you had like the organic life of Bionis against the mechanical life of Mechonis, but you didn't really kind of feel bad killing the Mechon when you were with Shulk and all of his friends, because they were kind of just soulless machines at the end of the day. And then with Xenoblade Chronicles 2, it was about these titans that were dying off and how the world was kind of in like a tight conflict between living space and what they were going to do and trying to find this paradise of Elysium. But Xenoblade Chronicles 3 really just goes into this insane kind of dark setting where you basically have these soldiers who only have a lifespan of 10 years to live. They're trained as children to kill each other on the battlefield, and just it's a really dark setting compared to anything that we've seen in the other Xenoblade games. And the game does an incredible job at setting the mood with this atmosphere, as everything that happens in the game is taken very seriously, and there really aren't any like insanely goofy moments or anything that takes you out of your immersion with kind of what's really going on in this game. There are your funny little comedic relief moments here and there, but they're definitely ones that still fit very well with what's going on in the game, and I personally really enjoyed that. Now when talking about Xenoblade games, world design is always something that gets talked about, as Xenoblade games are known for having just insanely beautiful, fantasy looking worlds, and Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is of course no different. Just by glancing at the key art and seeing the sword of the Mechonis and the Orion Titan together, it's very easy to see that this game is going for a fusion of the worlds between Xenoblade Chronicles 1 and Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and that is easily able to be seen inside of the world design for this game, as there are so many little bits and pieces and fragments from Xenoblade 1's world as well as Xenoblade 2's world that you can see just all throughout the world design of this game. And I find that to be really enjoyable because if you've played Xenoblade 1 and if you've played Xenoblade 2, you can definitely recognize so many of these little areas and know exactly where they come from, and just seeing all these pieces all together inside of one game just feels very special. Now, the developers of the game, Monolith Soft, have even said that in terms of the world design, one thing that they really wanted to make sure that they did was still make the world feel brand new and special, and not just like you were going through the same area from Xenoblade 1 or 2 again, and they definitely nailed that as well. Every area does feel very special and distinctly new in terms of Xenoblade 3, however you still do get that familiar kind of sensation of Xenoblade 1 and 2's areas that you get to see inside of here as well, but it definitely doesn't feel like you're just going through Gaur Plains again, or you're just walking through Uriah again, and I definitely respect that. And the areas inside of the world are insanely big inside of this game, as even the developers have said that there's 5 times more walkable area inside of this game compared to the previous game in Xenoblade Chronicles 2. And one of the coolest things that I loved about the world design inside of this game is that there's actually fewer loading zones compared to Xenoblade 1 and Xenoblade 2, as multiple areas are put together inside of these giant areas known as regions. So in Xenoblade 1, for example, every area was its own loading zone, so by the end of the game you had a giant list of all of the different areas that you could fast travel to, and you had like Colony 9 and Tefra Cave and Bionis Leg and Ether Mines and Satoral Marsh, and it just kept going on, and you had a giant list of areas that you could go to. Now, Xenoblade 2 evolved this a step further, where I think there was like 10 or 12 different titans that you were able to go around and visit, and each of these titans had its own like little miniature world inside of there, and that was like the open area that you were able to go in and explore and kind of have the different areas throughout the game, and that's kind of the way that they went about it, which was definitely smaller than like the entire list of areas that you had in Xenoblade 1. But now Xenoblade Chronicles 3 takes this even a step further, where there's only about like 6 or 7 major regions that I would say inside of the game, but these regions feel huge compared to Xenoblade 1 and Xenoblade 2's areas, and it actually feels like multiple areas from Xenoblade 1 put together and multiple titans from Xenoblade 2 put together in terms of the scale and how much there actually is to walk around in. So there's actually less loading zones in terms of these areas, but these areas are so much bigger, and it's crazy because you can actually see different biomes seamlessly blend into each other inside of the same region, where you could be walking in like a desert area, for example, and see all of the desert area and the sand and everything around you, and just keep walking, and all of a sudden it'll seamlessly transition into this amazing kind of grassy area with trees and stuff, and I just really love how they're able to do that. Now, in terms of the small things that I didn't really like that much about the world design, if there is one thing, I really kind of wish that the snow area was a little bit better. I feel like Xenoblade games have been known to have such beautiful snow areas and so much stuff to be able to discover and stuff. Like Valak Mountain is already one of my favorite areas in a video game with how pretty that area is with the snow and everything. And one of the craziest things about Xenoblade games that I always really loved is how some areas just looked so much more prettier at night than they look in the day. And I feel like Xenoblade 3 really didn't use this feature that much, where I know in Xenoblade 1 there's so many different areas that look way prettier at nighttime than they look in the day. Satoral Marsh is of course the easiest example, where it's just a swampy area in the day, but then at nighttime the trees all light up like Christmas trees and it's just insanely beautiful. Aero Sea, for example, is like this area where it's just like a beach with floating islands in the day, but then at nighttime you see like all of these little stars that are raining down and like all these meteor showers that are happening, so that's insanely pretty. Valak Mountain, you get to see like this purple sky and all of these like shiny ice crystals at nighttime. I just feel like there's so many prettier areas in the game at nighttime than how you see them in the day, and I was really hoping that Xenoblade 3 would kind of have that as well, because I feel like even Xenoblade 2 does this to an extent, but this game just didn't really have that as much, where it feels like kind of at nighttime it was just the same exact area, but it would just get kind of gray tinted or like darker tinted, but no areas that had like a drastically different visual style at night. Now, moving into the characters, I actually love every single character that's inside of this game. I don't really think that there's any character that I distinctly just hated inside of this game and didn't want to see them at all. No character really felt like that for me, and especially with like the main party characters, like every single character has so much to them, and I really enjoyed that a lot. It doesn't really feel like anybody was kind of left behind or anybody was done dirty. Everybody has something to them, and I feel like that's what really kind of has like a lot of cool importance with each character in the game, is that every character has something that's important with them that you'll get to discover as you're playing through the game, and it doesn't just feel like the game is just about the protagonist characters and the other characters are just kind of like sidekicks that are with you. It really feels like it is about everybody in here that's together, and I really enjoyed that. What I feel like also makes the cast of main characters so special inside of this game is how they actually start out hating each other in the beginning, but then over time slowly become friends, as of course you've got 3 characters from Keves and 3 characters from Agnes, characters from opposing sides that are obviously told at a very young age that the other side is the enemy and that they're the bad guys and that you just have to kill them, and that's basically all you have to do. So to see them kind of come together like that is just something that's very cool to see inside of this game, as pretty much in every other Xenoblade game, once you come across another party member, they're always just very friendly and they join you on your adventure. But here, it really kind of feels like these characters never wanted to be with each other in the first place, but because of the way that fate kind of went and how they ended up becoming like this, they are brought together, and it's just a very special way of seeing it happen inside of this game. Moving into the soundtrack and voice acting, as usual, a Xenoblade game has a stellar soundtrack, and that is no different with Xenoblade Chronicles 3. There are some incredible battle themes and really good different types of music that plays throughout the game, and of course, I'm sure I'm going to have different types of music playing throughout this video as well. The battle themes in particular, I think, are definitely like the strongest suit inside of this game. There's some really good battle themes, like especially the Mobius battle theme against like the villains, and some of the other battle themes that you'll encounter throughout the later parts of the game are very nice, and I feel like there's some really good music in terms of the cutscenes as well, and kind of setting the mood when it's like some sad music that's playing with like the piano, and of course the flute motif that's been embedded throughout the entire soundtrack of the game, which also sounds beautiful. I was a little worried that at first I was going to get kind of annoyed with all the flute sounds that were always going to be playing with every song, but no, they do it in a very beautiful way, and I really enjoyed it. Now, something that I see a lot of people say is that Xenoblade 3's area music is not as good as Xenoblade 1 and 2's, and to be honest, I don't agree with this at all. I think that a lot of people just don't see that Xenoblade 3's area music kind of has like a different approach or a different style to it compared to Xenoblade 1 and 2's, where I feel like for those games, the music was always very loud and adventurous sounding, and it was actually very unique in that sense, so that's why you got like really cool themes like this. Or this. But with Xenoblade 3's area music, it definitely sounds like they cranked down the boominess and loudness compared to Xenoblade 1 and 2, and it's because of that that the music isn't as empowering when you're walking through the world, so you don't really remember it as much and it doesn't sound as unique. But I feel like the reason that they did that is because of the way that this game kind of is, with how Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is telling a much more serious story and how it's kind of like very dark and grim with the setting that they have in this world, where every character only has like 10 years to live and all of that, and I feel like it's because of that that they wanted the background music for the areas to not really be like a super happy, adventurous type of theme, because it's not like some happy adventures that the characters are going on. They basically all have like a timer for how long they even have to live, and it's because of that that the music kind of, I feel, isn't as like loud and kind of happy sounding, but more so kind of just there, but it's not like super in your ear, kind of how like Xenoblade 1 and 2 were. And I feel like it's because of that that maybe you don't really remember too many of the themes in terms of the areas, but I don't think that it really makes them worse or anything like that, like how I see a lot of people saying. I feel like it's just a different approach compared to the other games. Now, does that mean I would choose to listen to a Xenoblade 3 area theme over Gaur Plains and more Ardain? Probably not, but the point that I was trying to make was that Xenoblade 3's area themes are not bad, but they're just not made in the same style as Xenoblade 1 and 2's, and I feel like that's kind of the big reason why people don't feel so fondly of them. Now when it comes to voice acting, the voice acting inside of this game is also pretty good. I know for some people with like Xenoblade 2, they definitely felt that the voice acting was like a hit or miss, and sometimes the delivery would take out their immersion. Voice acting for me really isn't insanely important, but I definitely do like it when they do have some good voice acting, and Xenoblade 3 definitely does have that, where every character I feel like delivered their lines pretty well, and even like the really deeply emotional scenes with like a lot of yelling and stuff going on, those scenes are also really good as well. I wouldn't say that it's better than Xenoblade 1's voice acting, which I feel like Adam Howden just really kind of steals the show with how he goes with Shulk's voice acting in that game, but this game does have some really good voice acting too, and I definitely really enjoyed it. There really wasn't any character to me that just had like a really annoying voice that I didn't want to hear, so overall I was pretty happy. Now moving on to graphics, of course the Nintendo Switch is not the most powerful system that's out there, and because of that, a lot of times in terms of the technical aspect, games don't look as pretty as they can actually be in terms of like sheer numbers of raw resolution and frame rate, but I feel like Monolith Soft does a really good job at how they handle the art style for Xenoblade games and making them look really pretty even on low powered hardware. Even since the Wii days when they were working on a 2006 system that could only do 480p, they were still able to make this insanely big, large open world with these beautiful sunsets and this amazing looking world all on the Nintendo Wii with the original Xenoblade 1. And that's no different with now on the Nintendo Switch and Xenoblade Chronicles 3, as we already knew with Xenoblade 2's DLC Torna that Monolith Soft had already been working on a brand new rendering engine, and that they've already been tweaking it and trying to make it look better for their upcoming games. And this new game here with Xenoblade 3 is definitely taking full advantage of this new rendering engine with how everything looks, and it definitely looks really, really good, and is definitely one of the most prettiest games that I've seen on the Nintendo Switch. Now once again, I'm not talking about like the raw resolution number or the frame rate or anything like that, but rather just looking at the environments themselves and the cutscenes and everything. The environments inside of Xenoblade 3 definitely look much sharper than the areas that were inside of Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. They definitely seem to be using like a new upscaling algorithm or something that definitely kind of makes areas look much sharper than they were before, and they definitely got rid of like that fuzzy kind of filter that they had before too, to kind of make like some of the lower resolution areas look like a little bit better, but in reality they were kind of just looking a little worse. So it definitely looks much better now than Xenoblade 2 and Xenoblade Definitive Edition, which is really nice. The cutscenes, despite still being in 30 FPS, still have some amazing choreography and camera angles and just look really vibrant and beautiful, especially when I was playing it on my big OLED TV. They definitely look really nice, and especially for sitting away and just looking at them, they look really, really good. It's really only when you kind of look really closely at these types of cutscenes and just kind of the game in general where you can kind of notice a little bit of the fuzzier areas and stuff inside of the game. But if you're sitting kind of a little bit far away from your TV or your monitor and just playing through the game, it does look really beautiful. One thing that I also don't see anybody talk about that much with this game is the user interface and the UI. All of the menus are so easy to kind of click through and navigate, and I really like the sound effects that play when you like confirm something and go back to. I feel like it's very nicely organized, and one of the coolest things about the UI inside of this game is how it canonically actually makes sense because of how the UI is actually taking place inside of the iris of these characters, where all of the characters inside of this game have like an iris, which is like a little built-in computer chip that's built into their eyes. And so when you're going into your settings and changing stuff, it's like you're simulating that through your iris. And even like in the gameplay, when you see all of your arts and everything listed, they all have like that orange color to it as well. So it's like everything is how you're viewing it through your iris, and I really love when games do that with the UI. And in terms of the graphics, the thing that absolutely blew my mind away was something that I wasn't really even expecting to happen in this game, because I was always like, the Nintendo Switch can never handle this, there's no way that it could happen, and that is having cutscenes seamlessly transition into gameplay, which is something that I never even see happen on the Nintendo Switch. That's something that I see like when I play like Final Fantasy VII Remake on my PlayStation, where it's something that's so cool where you're just kind of seeing this epic cutscene happen, and then all of a sudden the camera moves back and you're just playing as your character seamlessly without any loading screen or anything anything like that, and that's something that I've always wanted to have inside of a Xenoblade game, but I was always like, if they're working on a Nintendo system, there's never going to be any way that they could incorporate that into the game, but they actually somehow did it inside of this game, which is just insane, where you could have like this insane cutscene happen with all this stuff happening with the bosses, and then all of a sudden the camera will just move back and you're just going to be playing as the characters right into the gameplay. And it's just so cool because in past Xenoblade games, they would always have like a screen that would fade to black, there would be like a little loading screen, and then you would get into the gameplay. But this just makes the seamlessness so cool to see it happen right there, right from the cutscene itself, and definitely one of the coolest things that I've seen in terms of the graphics with this game. Alright, so now moving into the combat, I'm just going to say right off the bat that this game easily has my favorite Xenoblade combat of all time. This game just perfects the Xenoblade combat system so well in my opinion, and it's just really cool because it's your traditional Xenoblade style with auto attacks and having your auto attacks build up your arts and then using your arts to build up your talent arts, but there's just so many cool changes that they've done, and just the entire experience of the combat itself just feels so satisfying to pull off, and I really love it. So the first thing is that you can actually bring every single party character into every battle with you for the first time. So every single Xenoblade game in the past with like Xenoblade 1 and Xenoblade 2 always had multiple party members, but you were only able to bring 3 into battle with you. But in this game, you can actually bring all 6 of your party members into battle with you, and even have an additional hero character which acts as your 7th party member. Your 7th party member unfortunately isn't playable, but you can have like a whole different range of hero characters that you can add to, which all have their own little abilities and stuff to help you in the combat. And it's just so cool because you can actually have every single character fighting with you. And of course, at first I was like, this is going to be way too chaotic, there's going to be so much going on, but it really just works so well together and everything just works really nice. And I didn't even really have any issues with like the frame rate dropping or anything like that either. It does look really well and it performs really well too, which is just really cool because this is something that I feel like kind of fixes one of the biggest issues with Xenoblade, where you would see like cutscenes happen where they would show like 1 or 2 characters inside of the cutscene, but then when you would go into the gameplay portion and actually fight them, if those characters weren't who you were using in the party, you wouldn't actually even get to see them. But now every single cutscene is going to happen, you're going to see every character and everybody talk, and then all of those characters also fight that enemy in terms of the gameplay, which is just so cool. Much like how everything else is in Xenoblade 3, the combat is also a fusion of Xenoblade 1 and Xenoblade 2, and what's super cool about that is even how the way that the arts work, where the characters that are from Xenoblade 1's world, which are from Keves, actually have arts that are circle shaped and fill up over time just like how they worked in Xenoblade 1. And then you've got Agnes characters which are from the Xenoblade 2 world, and they have diamond shaped arts just like how they are in Xenoblade 2, and they fill up doing auto attacks. They even have both of the combo routes with Break, Topple, and Daze from Xenoblade 1, and Break, Topple, Launch, and Smash from Xenoblade 2, and they even added a brand new combo after Daze with Burst for Xenoblade 1 so that both of the combo routes have the same number of effects. And they both have their own uses too, with the Smash combo being the one that does an insane amount of damage if you want to use that to kill super bosses and unique monsters. And then you've got the Burst combo, which lets them burst into a whole bunch of items to be able to use them to farm materials and farm equipment for your characters. So I definitely like that because it's just one combo that you have to pay attention to, this Break, Topple, and Launch or Daze combo. And it's not like Xenoblade 2 where you have different combos with like the Driver combo and then a Blade combo and all of that happening at the same time. It's just very easy for somebody to be able to understand which one to do. There's also a bunch of other changes that they've made to the combat as well. For example, you can finally do mid-character switching, which is something that I've wanted inside of a Xenoblade game for so long, which finally allows you to be able to switch the character that you're playing as in mid-battle so that you could do a combo as one character, finish it up with another character, or if you just want to be playing as a tank for a second, you can do that, and then all of a sudden switch into your attacker character and start slashing them with a sword, switch to a healer character so you can start giving heals to everybody. It's just a lot of fun. One of the biggest changes that they've made to the combat is how only healer characters have the ability to revive others, and this definitely adds an extra layer of difficulty in terms of the battles, because now you have to make sure that you keep all of your healers alive, because if you lose all of your healers and anybody else goes down, there's no way for you to be able to revive those characters back. And especially now the healers have a very important role because you pretty much always want to bring a healer with you into every battle, and I definitely like that because I feel like with the Xenoblade games in the past, healer characters were never really super important. With like Xenoblade 1, Charla was like your dedicated healer, but really once you got Ricky, who was like a tank character who could also heal a little bit as well, you never really needed to use Charla inside of your party. And then with like Xenoblade 2, you never really needed like healer blades or healer characters, as if you just did a driver combo correctly, you would always get these HP bottles and HP potions that would be falling everywhere too, and you could just run to those and get HP back that way. So I feel like this definitely adds a lot more importance to the healers inside of this game, and I definitely really like that. You also can now do a quick step in battle, where if you click in the R stick, you get to do like a little sideways slide or like a little flip or something, and be able to move around really quickly. And this is so good for being able to get to the back of your opponent if you want to do a back attack or a side attack or something. So I really enjoyed that, because I definitely didn't like moving around that much in the combat in Xenoblade 1, and especially in Xenoblade 2, because you always move so slowly whenever you had your blade weapon drawn, so it's a very nice change to have. Something that is not returning from previous Xenoblade games are the QuickTime events, which were these button prompts that would pop up on your screen where you had to press a button in a certain amount of time to be able to do a combo effectively or to be able to do damage and stuff. And I feel like that this is a feature that I know some people definitely really miss. I definitely didn't really notice it too much, where I was like, damn, I really wish that I could still be able to do some QuickTime events, but I know for some people that it does kind of suck that you can't really do them. There is like a little aspect of it now where you have to kind of like wiggle your joystick and be able to mash the A button if you get dazed or something, but you don't really have that effect when you're doing like talent arts or combos like how you were in previous games. Just like how visions from the story were a part of the gameplay inside of Xenoblade 1, the Ouroboros is actually a part of Xenoblade 3's combat as well, where you and another character can fuse into your Ouroboros form and gain access to special Ouroboros arts and be able to do them, and that's always really fun too, because you can have multiple Ouroboroses at the same time against an enemy, do a whole bunch of different combos, and be able to do some really powerful AoE attacks, and it's always really fun being able to play as those as well. By far though, the coolest feature about the Xenoblade 3 combat is this concept of classes, where you finally now have the ability to be able to change any character into any type of class or role that you want, and that's a ton of fun. In Xenoblade 1, for example, characters already had their designated roles. Shulk was always going to be an attacker, Reyn was always going to be a tank, Charla was always going to be a healer. But Xenoblade 2 evolved this a little bit further, where characters had their own roles, like Rex being an attacker, Nia being a healer, but you could give them different types of blades if you wanted to have different types of attributes to be able to be on them. So you could try to make some character be like a tank or kind of like an attacker, even though that's not what they were meant to be. But Xenoblade Chronicles 3 finally perfects this at giving you the ability to change any character into any role and any class that you want. So for example, if you love a character like Uni and you really like playing as her, but you don't like her default class of being a healer, you can actually change her to just having a sword fighter class, just like how Noah was, and be able to use her as your main character and doing your different types of attacks with the sword. You could make her into a tank, you could make her into another healer. There's so many cool different possibilities that you have now, and you can mix and match so many different combinations and have all of the different types of classes that you unlock throughout the game. And this level of customizability is just so much fun to mess around with, and definitely one of the best features about this game's combat. Chain attacks are also done completely differently inside of this game, where in Xenoblade 1 and 2, you had a party meter, which would be at the top of the screen that you had to fill up all the way to be able to do a chain attack, but that meter would also be able to be used to revive other characters, and if you had a block filled and somebody went down, you could still be able to use a block to be able to revive them. But because now healers are the ones that have the ability to revive others, there's just a separate meter now to be able to fill to do chain attacks, and the chain attacks in this game are so good because there's no RNG like in Xenoblade 1 as for if you get to go again or not, and it's also not super broken like how it was in Xenoblade 2, where you just get 4 orbs and then do like a full burst and instantly kill everything from half health, where now you have all of these different kind of orders that pop up, and each of them have their own different pros and cons to them, and every time you complete a round, 1/3 of the chain attack meter goes away, so you can basically get 3 rounds of a chain attack, but sometimes you can do other things to be able to get even more rounds, and do some other special things to be able to get your Ouroboros arts, and do some even more powerful things. It's just a lot of fun because there's a lot of different ways that you can actually do little benefits to be able to get little bonuses and stuff, and the chain attack animations are also just really flashy and fun to look at, so I really enjoy it. And finally, in terms of the gameplay, Monolith Soft has made so many little tweaks and adjustments to the gameplay and has listened to so much feedback that it really makes Xenoblade 3 just so much fun to play. In terms of exploration, there is so much to do inside of Xenoblade 3's world. There's a bunch of collectibles that are just littered all around the world, and you can just run by them and quickly pick them up to have items to be able to use for cooking or crafting and stuff. You've got chests that are hidden everywhere with like rare items and accessories and stuff. You can even see soldiers who have passed away on the battlefield just lying around in the world, and as an Offseer, Noah can play his flute to make their souls be able to carry forward. You've even got these giant supply drops that can be dropped around the world from Kevis or Agnes, and go over there to open them up and find a whole bunch of rare items. You can even see like these little exclamation points on monsters sometimes interacting with the world and dropping rare items from like a tree or something. There's even like these skirmishes of monsters or characters fighting each other, and you can go in and help one side and be able to get different rewards depending on which side that you want to help. So there's just a lot of different cool things that you can do inside of the world. Of course, you've got like your really special secret areas that you can go and discover that are really pretty to find as well. So there's just a lot of stuff that you can do inside of the world, and I really enjoy that. The concept of field skills is also returning from Xenoblade 2, where you have like these different skills that you can use in the field to be able to access different areas. However, it's done significantly better inside of Xenoblade 3 as they're not tied to gacha blades or being able to pull them by chance or anything. So if you unlock the field skills by doing different side quests or something, you actually have the ability to be able to get to even different areas inside of the world and be able to traverse them. And you only need 2 field skills, or 2 traversal skills as they're called in this game, to be able to beat the game. And these traversal skills are just given to you as you're playing through the main story and the characters that you come across. But if you decide to do the other optional quests, you can even get the other 2 traversal skills, which can be used to unlock even more of the world. There's fewer side quests inside of this game compared to Xenoblade 2 and 1, but that's also better because I feel like the side quests in this game are definitely more interesting, and especially in terms of the hero quests, as sometimes you're going to find these hero quests which are going to be littered throughout the world, and in doing these hero quests, you can actually unlock a brand new hero, which you can use with you as your 7th party member in terms of battle, but you can also be able to use their classes on your other characters and be able to get different weapons and items, which is always really nice to have too. So I feel like in doing that, and then being able to get like their special skills that you can use on your characters too, and be able to get their other arts that you can do with fusion arts, there's a lot of different incentives to be able to do hero quests, and I really enjoyed that in terms of the gameplay because I found myself doing a lot of hero quests much more than I was actually progressing the story sometimes, and I really enjoyed them because they're even voiced and have their own cutscenes and stuff, and they're really well done. And there's a ton of quality of life changes that they've made with the gameplay as well. The navigation is much better inside of this game as you have a line that's just drawn to you in the world for exactly where you need to go. You can view tutorials at any time if you don't understand something. The Collectopedia cards now are a way of doing fetch quests that are inside of this game as a simple way of gathering materials that other characters want, and you can just get them sent to the character directly from like the menus inside of the game instead of having to go back to the character and talk to them. So there's a lot of little changes like that that are made, which makes the game much better too. Customizing your characters is also much more streamlined inside of this game, and I really enjoyed that compared to Xenoblade 1 and 2, where like in Xenoblade 1 and 2, it just felt like you had so many different mechanics and things that you had to keep in mind of. Like in Xenoblade 1, for example, you had to make sure everybody had good weapons, everybody had to have good gems, everybody had to have good clothing, you had to level up their arts, you had all of these different skill links, and then moving into Xenoblade 2, you have driver accessories, you have the aux cores on your blades, you have the blade affinity chart, you have the driver affinity chart, you have the core chips on your blades weapons, you have the pouch items for your drivers, you have to level up the arts for all of your blades. There's just so much stuff that you have to keep in mind of, but inside of this game, it's actually very streamlined with all of the stuff that you have to keep in mind of. It's basically just equipping the gems that you have on your character, the gems that give you different abilities and perks and stuff. You've got some accessories that you have that you can add to your character, and then basically just the arts and skills that you want them to have in terms of their fusion skills and their class and everything like that. And that's pretty much it. There's not like a whole bunch of other extra stuff that you have to upgrade and keep in mind of, and I definitely really like that. One of the more interesting changes in Xenoblade 3's gameplay is that there's actually no heart-to-hearts compared to Xenoblade 1 and 2. Now, heart-to-hearts have been a staple in Xenoblade games for a pretty long time, and they've always kind of helped to flesh out characters even more by having extra dialogue options pop up for these characters during heart-to-hearts where they could interact with other characters and talk more about them and add even more to their character. And while heart-to-hearts may not be inside of Xenoblade 3, that doesn't mean that those additional dialogue options that helped you get even closer with the characters are just no longer present inside of this game at all, as pretty much all of those types of things have now moved on to this new campfire feature, which is going to be returning from Toward of the Golden Country. So throughout the world, you're going to find a lot of these camp spots, which are going to be rest points, and at these rest points, you can discuss with your other party members about the side quest that you've been given, and the current story and what's kind of happening with everything going on right now, and it's really these types of discussion moments that kind of adds more to the depth of each character, and kind of the bonds that you were able to get with heart-to-hearts in the past. The only unfortunate thing is that they aren't voiced like how the heart-to-hearts were inside of Xenoblade 2, and like the quiet moments inside of Future Connected, but just like the heart-to-hearts in Xenoblade 1, they do add a lot to each character. There's also not that much filler with the gameplay inside of this game either, so I was really happy at that too. With pretty much any RPG game, you can kind of expect that there's always going to be some type of filler, but there really weren't that many like hugely slow moments inside of this game where I was just feeling like I wasn't making any progress with the main story at all. There are a few slow moments here and there, but for the most part, it definitely does feel like the game is moving forward pretty much all of the time. Really, if there was anything that I didn't like about the gameplay, it was this concept of how you were able to level up your classes, where basically something that the game never told you is that you only get experience for leveling up your classes if you battle against enemies that are within 5 levels of the current level that you're at. And because of how it's pretty easy to get really high leveled inside of the game, that means that a lot of the story bosses and things that you're fighting against might not even give you anything that you're actually using to be able to unlock new classes. So maybe some of you guys also had this experience where for a part of the game, it just felt like none of your characters were unlocking new classes or abilities to be able to use. And so I don't know exactly why they did this, but it's definitely my least favorite part in terms of the gameplay. But yeah, there you go guys, those are pretty much all of my thoughts on everything with Xenoblade 3, except for the main story, which I'll talk about in the next video. But man, I'm just looking at this right now, and this is going to be over a half an hour long video. Like, that's crazy. I didn't realize I had so much to talk about even just besides the main story. There's no way that anybody has actually made it to this part of the video, right? Like, there's no way somebody actually listened to this for a half an hour. You know what? If you actually made it to this part of the video right now, I want you to go into the comment section and just type the word Ethel and nothing else. Just comment the word Ethel, because I highly doubt that anybody has actually listened to this and made it this far. But if you did, I really, really do appreciate it. Thank you so much for listening to all of my thoughts about this game. I really do appreciate it so much. And yeah, if you guys enjoyed this video, definitely be sure to click that like button and also comment down below. Let me know what you guys think about this. How are you guys feeling about Xenoblade Chronicles 3? Everything except for like the main story, which I'll talk about in the next video. How do you guys feel about all of this? Definitely be sure to comment down below and let me know. If you're new to this channel, then please be sure to subscribe. I'm definitely going to have some more Xenoblade content in the future, so definitely be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on that. Click on that bell to become a part of the notification squad. Go follow me on Twitter at Aero so you can be featured in videos, and also join my Discord server as well. We've got a bunch of people in there who are always talking about Pokemon and Smash Bros. And Nintendo, so definitely be sure to join that. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching.